Oh hey, it's Emily, and today I'm going to be talking about the books I read in January and February. I'm trying to catch up on wrap-ups, so I'm doing 2 months at a time until I catch up for the first 4 months of the year in a couple of different videos. I can film one right now super quickly and then hopefully one after work. I'm not sure what the lighting's going to look like. It's really gray and dreary outside right now, so this is the one place in my apartment with at least some natural light, so we're working with what we got here. But I really wanted to go ahead and get these filmed and just kind of catch up a little bit on some things, so I'm going to be pretty speedy, but let's just jump on in. The first thing I read in January was A Song for the Wild Built, and this is by Becky Chambers. This is a sci-fi novella, and the second novella in this series, I believe it's a duology, is going to be coming out I think in July, and I'm very excited. Anyway, it follows a non-binary tea monk, and tea monks, it's such a wonderful just idea. These tea monks in this world basically just, their job is to serve people tea and listen to them and kind of help talk them through whatever they want to talk through. It's delightful, and it's a society really focused on helping other people living sustainably, and you follow this non-binary tea monk who is just trying to find their way in the world and figure out what they want to do, how they want to spend their life. They've spent some time as a tea monk, and they meet a robot, and this robot has kind of come, robots in this world basically at one point left and said, we don't want to serve humans anymore, we're just gonna go off and we'll check in on you. This robot has come to kind of check in on humanity by talking to this tea monk. And so, you know, they began talking and just kind of are going on an adventure together to check in on humanity, per what the robots said that they would do when they originally left. It's delightful. I loved it. It's a warm hug in a book, and I think all of Becky Chambers' books really are. I loved it, and as I said, I'm so excited for the next one. The next book I read was Defy the Night by Bridget Kemmer. This is a YA fantasy that follows a pandemic of sorts. There are quite a few YA fantasies coming out now that deal with pandemics and diseases, unsurprisingly. So you follow a couple of different characters. One is trying to work in an apothecary and trying to help secretly get there's an antidote. She's trying to get that to as many people as possible, and there's someone there who's helping her, who also has a secret about who he is, and it's also just about the political struggle to actually distribute this antidote. And you know, there are some political leaders that's divided into different regions. A couple of the political leaders for some of these regions are trying to gain power and control over the situation. There are only a couple of places that produce this antidote, which is why they feel they have more power and are trying to use their position to leverage themselves to be more powerful. And so there are a lot of conversations in this about, distributing something like a vaccine or an antidote. How do you make those decisions? Who gets to decide that? How should that be decided? Kind of exploiting these situations, and certain people coming up to just fill in some of the gaps that maybe can't be filled in by political leaders to make sure that it gets to people who really need it. Anyway, very interesting. I had a really good time with that one. I enjoyed the characters, I enjoyed their dynamic, I enjoyed the adventure that they go on, and kind of the things that they need to deal with and the things that they learn about each other's perspectives along the way. I'm very excited for the next one to come out. The next one I read was The Keeper of Night by Kylie Baker. This is another YA fantasy that actually came out through Book of the Month. So this one follows Ren. She's a half British Reaper, half Japanese Shinigami. Her Shinigami powers are starting to flare up. She is actually, and she wants to leave London. She wants to escape. And she wants to go explore go to Japan, explore the Shinigami half of her, and she is trying to be recognized there as a full Shinigami. She's told that she needs to go through certain trials or go perform certain tasks in order to accomplish that. She doesn't particularly feel like she belongs in either place. Her brother is there to kind of help her through, and so it's in part about their relationship, in part about their family, in part about British Reapers, Japanese Shinigami. There's not much there about the history or relationship between the two, which would have been nice. You just know they don't like each other. And so, you know, she doesn't fit in London because the Reapers don't like Shinigamis and vice versa, but she doesn't really, there's not an explanation as to what's going on there, or the history or why, which I think would have been interesting. But anyway, she's performing these certain tasks, and then the book kind of takes an interesting turn that I actually really enjoyed. And you see her start to get closer and closer to what she wants, closer and closer to power, and what that does. And I was very intrigued by the ending, and I'm very interested in seeing what happens next. The next book I read was History of Cambodia. This is by Captivating History. Just it's 100 pages. It's very brief, and no country's history can be told in that short of a space. But it you know, does its best to kind of give some highlights, give some context for different parts of Cambodia's history. Definitely an interesting overview. It's hard to pull that off, but it definitely gives you a little bit more overview and context for some other things. This was part of Kim and I's effort to read books from around the world, and these are part of a set of books that we're reading about Cambodia. I'll leave information down below. I then read the first volume of Saga and thoroughly enjoyed this. This follows our couple here who have a baby. They're from two warring factions. One is on a planet, one is on a moon, and the planet and moon orbit each other, and so, or the moon orbits that planet, and so the planet can't directly attack the moon because that will then actually affect a lot of things on the planet. So they have proxy wars in other places. So it's just fun. The art is really cool. The story is a lot of fun. The story is being told later by the child, looking back on childhood. And so you know, you get a little bit of context there for what's going on. You follow this couple as they're trying to protect their child, with a bunch of different groups trying to chase them down. It's super fun. I had a thoroughly enjoyable time reading that one. And next, one of my favorites of the year so far, Ship of Destiny by Robin Hobb. This is the third book in the Live Ship Traders series. I'm not going to talk too much about this one because this is a third book in a trilogy that is a second trilogy in a larger world. But in this one you follow pirates, you follow ships that have some sentience when 3 generations of a family die on its decks, if it's built a particular way. So these ships have some sentience, so you follow magical ships, you follow dragons, you follow a whole cast of families that control these live ships and the politics there. You follow all sorts of different types of characters and perspectives, and it's so much fun. It's very slowly paced. It is a classic Robin Hobb, very slowly paced, great character work. She really builds these characters up, and even if you despise some of the characters, or there are quite a few characters who are pretty morally gray, but you really come to understand them, and you want to follow them whether you like them as a character or not. And it's so interesting. The politics is super interesting, and you know, she takes a lot of time and a lot of care to build the world, build these characters, I think to great payoff. It's not to everyone's taste in terms of the writing, but I love it. So yeah, I can't get enough of this series. So the next thing I read was The Gilded Cage by Lynette Noni. This is a second book in, I think, what's going to be a trilogy, so I'm not going to talk too much about this one. The first book is The Prison Healer, and you follow a woman who's been in prison for a while, and her father ultimately passed away in prison. She was in prison or brought to this prison when she was really young. She took over her father's work as the healer at this prison. You follow a couple of things going on. There's an outbreak. So another YA fantasy that kind of dealt with an outbreak of some sort that has come out during into the pandemic. And you also follow someone who was brought to the infirmary who was sentenced to a trial by ordeal and needs to basically complete some impossible tasks in order to be let go or found not guilty. Our main character, this healer, takes on that sentence for reasons and that are clear later in the novel, so I'm not going to talk about that, but she takes on this, you know, her patient in the infirmary's sentence and is working to complete these impossible trials, or go through these impossible trials. I thought it was super fun, a unique setting, and I'm not going to say too much again about this one because I don't want to spoil anything for the first one, but such a unique setting, an enjoyable cast of characters. You know, I was just intrigued by what was going on. I never had a problem picking it up. I was always interested in what was going to happen next. Even when the pacing was a bit slower, I still wanted to keep going and find out what would happen next, and sometimes the pace would really pick up. The last thing I read in January was a nonfiction, All Creatures Great and Small by James Herriot. And I did also vlog in January, I forgot to mention, so I'll see if I can link those below as well in case you want more thoughts on any of these. So this one is a nonfiction memoir about a rural vet, and you follow him after he's gotten his license to practice and he's trying to find work. He finds work with a vet as an assistant to this vet, who is quite an interesting character, and you follow just his experiences going to Yorkshire and living there, trying to establish himself in the community as a trusted and respected vet, and just his trials and tribulations and triumphs, and just, you know, his professional life, his personal life at the time. It was a mix of just hilarious and sometimes just hilarious. I really like the writing. Like, it's kind of just vignettes throughout his experiences for a certain period of time. I think he's written more memoirs that cover other time periods in his life, but it's kind of a vignette style that's just super fun to read. And, you know, he tells I don't know, it's pretty charming to listen to. Some of the stories are super funny or heartwarming, some of them are super sad. There are occasional frustrating moments where this is clearly the experiences of a privileged white man living, you know, in the 1930s, 40s, during when this time period is set, and writing about it in the 70s. So, you know, there are definitely some moments where you can tell. I'll leave my vlogs down below, as I said, if you want to hear more specific conversations that I'm referring to. But anyway, it was so much fun to listen to, though. So in February, the first thing I finished was actually also a nonfiction. This is Joyful, The Surprising Power of Ordinary Things to Create Extraordinary Happiness, and this is by Ingrid Fattel Lee. And this is a book all about and it's very research-based too, so she does a lot of research into what brings people joy, what brings people happiness, what kinds of things in our external environment create those feelings, and how we can, you know, she kind of goes through different things and shows how they can provide joy to some people when they're in the external environment, and what you can do to kind of incorporate some of those things into your external environment if you think that that's something that would bring you joy. And so she goes through a bunch of different things, and it was super interesting. I thought the research was really interesting. I thought it was well written, and it talks about her personal experiences with some of these things and why she was ultimately wanting to do this research, kind of find out the information that she did. So it was kind of a mixture of her personal experience researching for this book, as well as kind of what she found throughout the process. And I thought it was well written, interesting, entertaining, funny at quite a few moments, and I would highly recommend. I just thought it was really interesting. The next thing I read in February is City of Bones by Cassandra Clare, and this is for the a Bookstar read-along. Again, I'll link that down below. And we're reading the Mortal Instruments series throughout the year, so this is the kickoff to that, and you follow Clary, who is kind of brought into the world of shadow hunters, and it was interesting. It was entertaining. It's a young adult fantasy that was written some time ago, and you can definitely tell there's definitely a bunch of just super dramatic angst, and it was like very clearly an older YA. But still entertaining, fun. You know, it was fun to follow Clary. It was fun to go through some of her adventures. There's definitely a lot that is brought up in here to kind of try to build up the world, so there's a lot there. Not all of it is explored, but that's part of why it's a series, to explore all of these things. So she tries to do a lot in this book, and sometimes the pacing can kind of be, the pacing overall was pretty quick actually. Sometimes it could be slower or faster, but you know, is there super in-depth character work? Is this, you know, unique stuff that at this point we haven't seen before a million times? Like, not necessarily, but was it fun and entertaining if you're in the mood for something that's super angsty? Sure, yeah, it was a good time. The next thing I read in the month of February was Love and Other Disasters by Anita Kelly. I absolutely love this one. This is a food-based romance. Our main characters are on a cooking contest show, which was a lot of fun. It's just a fun setting for the book, and you follow a non-binary character as well, London. Our other main character is Dahlia, and you just follow them meeting on this show, falling in love. You follow their personal experiences and kind of what led them to that moment, what that show meant to them, what the relationship meant to them as it was developing, kind of where they go next. And I love this one. I love this one so much. So the next thing I finished in the month of February was After Love by Tanya Byrne, and in this one, another YA fantasy from Fairy Loot, and in this one you follow a couple of characters, one of whom is dead and is recruited essentially to be, to kind of help shepherd spirits on to the next realm. And you also follow the girlfriend that she left behind, and you know, the first part you follow them actually meeting. In the past you follow them meeting and kind of what happened, and then you follow after and her being you know, brought into the fold of this group of people who, you know, kind of shepherd people on. And then you follow her girlfriend kind of reeling from the death, and yeah, you follow you follow them trying to figure things out and trying to get back to each other. And this was cute, it was fun, it didn't really leave a huge impact on me, and it's probably not one that I'm going to think about too much, probably one that I won't keep on my shelves, but I am glad I read it, and it was entertaining. You know, it was, again, cute and fun for what it was, but I haven't really thought about it much since. The next book that I read was actually, or I say read, it was actually something I DNF'd or did not finish, and that was The Governor's Daughter by Sambath Mayas, and this is one that we were going to read for our group of books about Cambodia. So I'll talk more about what we read instead in another video because we read that a bit later. But Kim and I actually both separately DNF'd this. We just couldn't get into it. I couldn't get into the writing. It wasn't bringing me in. It seemed a little young for what I wanted it to be and what I expected it to be going into this story. And I wasn't being pulled in. I didn't want to read it. I didn't want to pick it up. So ultimately I just decided not to. This follows a woman who's the daughter of a detective and kind of gets kind of brought into his world for, I think there's something else going on. Someone is attacked, I think her friend is attacked, and so she's trying to figure out what's going on. But again, I just could not get into it. The final book I read for the month of February was Our Violent Ends by Chloe Gong. This is the second book in this duology after These Violent Delights. I really enjoyed this duology. I I just enjoy the characters, I enjoy the families. This is a book about two rival gang families, and it's set in 1920s Shanghai, and it's based on some real historical events and historical at this setting at this time. You know, of course it is a work of fiction, but she does bring in some real elements there. And in this series you're following, it's actually gets a bit gruesome in some places, but you're following a disease going around where you know, some people are pulled to do harm to themselves, and you know, they're trying to figure out what's going on, and two members of our rival family gangs need to team up in order to figure out what's going on, and that's Roma and Juliet, and they actually have a history a while ago of being together, but they aren't anymore, and they need to kind of get back, they need to work together to help figure out what's going on. And so you know, again, it gets pretty creepy and dark in some places. There's some body horror elements, so keep that in mind. The pacing can be a little bit all over the place. Sometimes it's really fast, sometimes it is a lot slower. There's some really great character work, I think, in here. And it's just fun to follow the politics of these two families and just follow what's going on. It's just a wild story that I thought was really entertaining. Would recommend. So that is everything that I read for the months of January and February. Again, hopefully this won't be too long. I'm trying to keep these short. I will make one very soon for March and April, and then I can be caught up. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these books. Let me know what your favorite books that you read in January and February were. I would love to know. And yeah, if you have any opinions on the books I read, please share them. I would love to hear. And subscribe for more bookish content, and I'll leave more information below that I've mentioned. I'll also leave my Instagram and Twitter. I will also leave more information about how you can support the Black Lives Matter movement, and I will see you in the next one. Bye everyone.